Hi, Geoff Ballard here. I'm going to demonstrate or give you first of all a bit of a clue in what you need to do a Mousse change. A lot of people are mystified by this whole Mousse thing, and of course the beauty of it is you can't get a flat tyre because there's no air in the tyre, so pretty straightforward stuff. There's other advantages. Obviously the only limit is can I stay on the bike, because you can hit things really hard when you've got a Mousse in there. Obviously you can't get a flat, but like air goes to nothing, you usually end up denting your rim. With a Mousse it actually sandwiches in there and goes to a certain density and protects the rim a bit. So there's plenty of reasons why guys use it in trail riding, obviously racing circles. They can't afford to get a flat. Even world motocross, pretty much everyone in world motocross is using Mousse too now. So anywhere where you really can't afford to get a flat, and then for trail rides just the luxury of not actually having to carry tyre tyre levers and all that sort of stuff, and wheel spanners to take your wheels out, because you don't have to do all that because you can't get a flat. So it can really lighten your bum bag. But anyway, in the process you need to invest in a few things. So the first thing you need is the tyre changing ring, and with a leverage, a bead breaker type of thing. It makes it so much easier. You kind of have to have that. You also really have to have the proper sort of lever, and here we have some of the new Ballard's ones, which they all have the particular bend which is needed in Mousse. They're quite long. You need a certain amount of leverage. You need 5 of them, which I'll show you as we go through it. These spatulas, there's all sorts of different things. We just use them as a bead guide. It becomes quite important. You can force certain ones, especially 21-inch fronts, a little bit easier. You can force them, but you risk breaking the bead without pushing it down into the other side of the tyre. So you need to prepare the tyre. So it's actually really fast to do a tyre change, but you lose a little bit of time at home or whatever in preparing you have to grease the tyre, inside of the tyre, with mousse grease. I've got a little bit here. There's a much more economical way of doing it. If you get into it, you get a tub or whatever. You need a mousse brush. A rubber hammer's helpful at the end. So then you get into the Mousse itself. The sizing's all a little bit funky too, because it's based around what Michelin first came out with their sizing, and they measured tyres differently than everybody else. So it's a bit of a can of worms. But in a general sense, so this is a tyre that came on a KTM standard, and it's a Maxxis, and it's a 140. So a 140 in this type of tyre is often the same as a 110 in the old one. So you do have to read between the lines a little bit. So this is a 140, 18-inch, very common. Enduro bikes generally 18, 21, so they're the most popular. So from there I'll show you a quick process of quickest way we can of just demonstrating how you grease on the inside of the tyre. That's important because Mousse's biggest enemy is heat, and if you get too much heat into it, the Mousse will last much less time, deteriorate much quicker. So it's quite important to keep the heat down by having the lubrication between the Mousse itself and the inner part of the tyre. Okay, so here's our tyre. One of the other things that's pretty interesting too, and I'll give you a quick demo, is the next process is preparing the Mousse. What I do and have done for 15 or 20 years nearly, and plenty of other people do, is we actually cut the Mousse as soon as we get it. You can use a knife. Hacksaw is really easy. The reason we do that is because it doesn't affect the Mousse. As you can see, it's all solid. There's nothing going on there, except that when you fit it into the tyre, it actually shows you how big the Mousse is, and in relation to everyone's tyres vary a little bit. So if it's really, really full where it's hard to get it in there, then you might even choose to cut a piece out. As the Mousse gets older and shrinks, you can put a little bit more back in. It's kind of a funky process again, but it's basically you just treat it as volume. You're just filling these tyres with this stuff, and then you go out and give them heaps. Okay, so the process is of greasing the inner part of the tyre. That's what you do first. If you lean on the tyre, you can see it opens up a little bit more. This is some Mousse grease here. You can work from a tub if you're using lots of it and really got into Mousse, but basically it's important to lubricate, all around. These brushes are a bit bent, makes it a bit easier to get into the sides, and you just go around. It's not really too slow to do it. It's important in some ways to you know, if you keep the tyre on there, some guys have a tyre on there for 6 months, so it's probably important that you pull it out after a certain few months and then re-grease it. It just makes everything last a bit longer. It's all about the enemy of heat. So okay, now again, by sitting on top of the tyre or putting weight on the tyre, you can start that way. You just push it in like that, and as you can see, I can get it in there. It's not too hard, so that'll be okay. But if you wanted a really softer ride, you might cut that much out of it and then put it back in a little bit later when it shrinks down a bit. In this case, we won't cut it again. We'll just put it in there. This bit's important to grease. Don't try and get it on the bead, which is here. You know, it's not good. It's generally going to make it a bit slippery. When the Mousse is new, you can actually ride without a rim lock, but as it gets smaller, if you ride in creeks and get a lot of water in there, the tyre can turn a little bit. Personally, I don't use a rim lock much at all, but in this instance we're going to fit it with a rim lock. Righto, that's that part done. Okay, the next process is we're going to fit the tyre. Because it's got a rim lock, we've got to start at the rim lock and you just beat it into into there, so it's in the rim. You just keep a little bit of pressure on so it doesn't want to fall back off. With a couple of levers, you just start the process about 100 mil at a time with getting the bead on like that. You can work back and forward a little bit. Okay, so then this is the process. Oh, now, sorry, we pull it around till the rim lock is over the rim lock assist. Then we go here, we hook that under there, we hook that under there. We just start the process. We get it on a little bit of an octopus needed, sort of a few levers. Once you get to there, that just neutralises itself and wants to stay. So then you just put the bead guides in. Again, the more of these you get in, the more pressure it takes off the bead when you get to the forcing side, which is towards the end there. So we'll put 4 in because we've got them. So then another one, and then we just keep going around. So it's a little bit tricky for the cameraman as we're working our way around, but it's this process. So once it gets hard, like it's starting to, then the most important thing of the lot, Josh, just have a look over here, this side here, and that's where you're looking for movement of the bead to go down into the tyre. Once you know that, that's cool. Come back to here, Josh. So then you relieve that just to get in the last tight one, and then you just do 2 processes, and then you flick it out. Oh, hang on, we forgot. As I said, I don't do a rim lock too much, and you can see how important that is. Push the rim lock in, it's all done. Once that's done, you just flick these out, and that's how you put one on. We've just fitted that. Now the only thing really to do, I mean, you've got to do the rim lock up, but not like air. If you forget to do the rim lock up, there's no big deal. I spend most of my time not even using a rim lock. Makes it a little bit harder, but there is some more security, especially as the Mousse gets older, and the more they shrink as they get older, the less pressure they put on the beads. So there is some importance to not having you know, the thing spin on you, but basically you can go out there and just hit everything, get nails in it, punch. You know, you cannot puncture these things. They're pretty bulletproof. So as long as you don't break the bead, then that thing's going to stay on there, and it's going to be good. So you've obviously got to keep an idea on how old it is, keeping it greased. From there, let's see, the only other important thing really is you know, just to keep them, when you're storing them, out of the sun. They really hate heat and they hate the sun, they'll deteriorate. But a moose is a pretty cool thing, you know. It takes some of the risk out of going riding, and they're a lot of fun to ride with. They bounce a little bit less, they're a little bit more of a dead feel. Some people like it, some people don't like it or have to get used to it, but ultimately all the fast guys around the world, all the guys who hate getting flats, they're starting to use them, and they're a great product.